Someone take a fucking picture of how we just did this MacGyver shit.
This is
here.
magic right now.
Okay, my headset is going into Sean's computer, but Sean is using my phone, but Eddie's using another computer, but somehow we all got this all set up perfectly to get Brandon's voice.
Here's my problem: is I don't have my computer with the the plot.
Yes, the acapella.
God.
Let's see the acapella.
Oh, it's holding up the other phone. So that. Oh, what do I have? Like 5 phones?
Well, you have 2 laptops and
Where's
2
your iPad?
phones.
Where's your iPad?
Hold on, I gotta put up this other computer. That I have.
Oh my god. This is fucking crazy.
I realized the costume I want for Halloween is Hannibal's face.
Brandon.
Are you gonna do a Lecter voice? Are you gonna do a Hannibal voice?
I am going to try. What do you want me to do, Jeremiah?
I don't know, but would you me? I'm sorry.
That's the one we're going
I would
with?
fuck me.
Oh my god.
Welcome to 3.5 Gentlemen, the podcast, where 3 of the 4 hosts provide a refined and intellectual analysis of movies from our private collections, and one of us tries desperately to keep up. We'll let you decide.
really
which
sounds
host
like a
is which,
Scooby-Doo
but for
villain.
now, my name is Sean, and with me are my co-hosts Jeremiah,
It rubs the lotion on the skin or else it gets the hose again.
Eddie,
Hello, Clarice.
and Brandon.
Listen, your voice sucks at this.
This season, we're shaking things up a
Put
bit.
the lotion on, Brandon.
We've decided that each host
Give me
will
the house,
pick a
give me the house,
film
give me the house.
from each decade, from the 70s to today, that exemplifies each time period. Some of the films will be underrated, some classics, while others will be overrated piles of cinematic crap. To finish off each decade, the hosts will have a group pick that is sure to delight. As with every episode we give, our goal is to answer one simple question: how many drinks does it take to get through each film that we've just watched? At the end of the podcast, we'll rate the movie based on a scale of 0 to 5, 0 being the perfect film that you can watch stone cold sober, and 5 being a terrible film that makes you tuck your junk between your thighs and dance like someone wants to fuck you.
Oh my god. Wait, let me ask you something. No one didn't do that?
No, nobody did that. In addition to our review,
Everybody
we
put their-
always pair our
no one?
selection with a cocktail that we hope will enhance the viewing
Cocktail,
experience.
I see what you did there.
This season, we want to focus a little more on the cocktail selection, so please feel free to shake, stir, or mix the cocktail that we've chosen and settle in for what we hope will be an engaging review. With that, what movie are we reviewing tonight, Brandon?
Hey, Brandon, wait. Before you start, no
Yeah.
one, you guys never used to tuck your shit in, and dance around or something?
I did not dance around, no. Well, if you danced around, then literally you should be named Wild
I
Bill.
didn't dance. I never danced around. It only happened when.
Well, I'm not
I
going to
was
say
taking a
dance
shit.
around.
Have you guys seen like butterflies and moths around? Because something's going on.
It only
Brandon,
happened-
take us through the
It only
movie.
happened when I was taking a shit, and I was
It's
like,
a death head
how does it
moth.
look like from here?
He's got enough tattoos. Where's the death head moth tattoo? That's all I'm saying. Anyway, tonight we have our 4th entry of our 90s film series, which is going to be the Academy Award winning Silence of the Lambs from 1991. This Anthony Hopkins... Shut up, Ed. This Anthony Hopkins triumph is rated an 8.6 on IMDb, has a critic score of 96%, and an audience score of 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
And it is ranked 74th of AFI's 100 Movies, 100 Years list. Jodie Foster stars as Clarice Starling,
Hello,
a top
Clarice.
student at the FBI's Training Academy, also known as Quantico, also known as a disappointing as shit movie, TV show.
Bad show.
Not a movie. Anyway, Jack Crawford, played by the one and only Scott Glenn, wants Clarice to interview Dr. Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins,
Sir
who is a
Anthony
brilliant
Hopkins.
psychiatrist. Shut up, Eddie. Who is also
wasn't
a
me,
violent
asshole.
psychopath. Shut up, Eddie.
That wasn't me, asshole.
Serving... Fuck off, dude. Anyway, he is serving life behind bars for various acts of murder and cannibalism. But
He
Crawford...
was innocent.
Shut up, Ed. But Crawford believes that Lecter may have some insight into a case, and that Starling, as an attractive young woman, may just be the bait to draw him out. Which, by the way, he's right.
Jeremiah, why don't you take us through our first impressions?
Before we get into our cocktail selection, we need to talk about whose film this is, and additionally, what our initial impressions of the movie were before sitting down to watch it. Since this is my film, I will go first. And again, I apologize for, I could say, switching the movie the very last minute.
For the 50th time, yes.
I have a fucking habit, dude. I got a problem here. I want to watch every fucking movie
time
here.
Out, real quick. Jared, how many movies in the 90s was this for you? Because originally it was supposed to be Dazed and Confused.
Yes.
This is at least the 6th movie choice in the 90s.
And then it was Titanic. And then I was going to go with The Crow. And then I was going to go with Forrest Gump. But then I'm like, hey, we're going to be in the Halloween time and whatnot. Why don't we just do Silence of the Lambs?
Well, you know what I'm really happy about? I'm just going to say this right now and get it out of the way. I'm just happy that we already did Point Break 2 years ago, so that we hadn't
so lucky.
had to have that one now, right?
That Dodge Street Garden.
No matter what, let's just start with our first impressions.
Okay,
Jeremiah,
first impression-
give me your
Shut up,
first
Sean.
impression of this movie.
The first impression, I remember like this was the movie that our mother like forbid us to watch. We were not allowed to watch this. And then, you go to your best friend's house, Eric, and he's like, you got a legal cable. And I'm like, hey, do you want to see this? Let's do
That's
it.
what you guys choose to watch.
Yeah. And
this was like an HBO The Deuce.
this was like on a special HBO Deuce. And so I remember seeing it, and I remember like terrified the shit out of me. Just things that would just keep for the rest of your life and whatnot. So that was my first impression. It literally scared the shit out of me when I was a little kid.
Eddie, what did you think of this movie?
I also remember that when our mom was just like, hey, you can't watch this movie. I was just like, why? And she's like, well, you can't watch this scene, at least these 2 scenes. And one of the scenes was tucking in. Like, she didn't want me to watch that scene. I don't know why. But I remember...
She didn't want to give you ideas.
I was just like, first off, it has to be long enough to tuck it in. Mom, don't worry about that. So the other thing, I was like, what, like 8?
I don't know.
It was 91, so I was seriously 11. No.
I feel like Eddie was
6.
more of a crying game kind of guy.
Brandon, what was your first impression?
First impression, I was just like, let's actually watch this movie for the first time.
Oh,
Brandon.
God. Okay, first impression for me. I have wanted to see this movie for forever.
Wait,
Probably
have you
since
seen it before
1993.
today?
I have never seen this movie up until last night.
Oh my goodness! Okay.
I have had the DVD for probably 6 years and have just not gotten around to it, mainly because I have a kid that's 6 years old. But finally, thanks to Jeremiah, I had to break that disc out of the box and and just throw that thing in and enjoy the hell out of it. So we'll get to what I thought of it, but
Okay.
So wait.
So the first time I saw this movie, I thought it was going to be like super creepy. I thought I was really looking forward to a horror movie, and it was not a horror movie. It was more of a suspenseful, creepy fucking movie with Anthony
that's
Hopkins,
one of my
who I think
questions
is
to
one
you.
of the greatest actors of all time. I was expecting something like gory and very 90s. I was expecting like overt gore, and to me, it didn't really give you that. I was expecting this like bloody, horrible movie, and it actually was more. I mean, I'll get into my review later, but it was more of a psychological thriller, I think, than a what I was expecting in a horror, gothic-y, like blood and guts movie.
I agree with you that, Sean, but I never seen someone eat someone's face, and I was like, "Fuck," But that was pretty fucking crazy, man. Like, if you made it right now, it would be like so fucking Saw out.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
So, Eddie, why don't you take us through the cocktail selection before we get into the movie?
Shoot, hold on. Where's my part?
It's literally in front
There's
of you.
Eddie again coming up.
As Brandon, hey, where are you at?
just
oh,
like a
wait,
Halloween
you're not over
movie
there at your
review all
chair.
over
Where
again.
are you?
We literally have your chair, by the way.
We
and
have a
it's
chair
like
with your
the
mic.
cutest thing in the
It's
world.
very sad. This is the first
We have a mic
podcast
there-
that
there
we've had
too.
with Brandon not
I'm looking
in the
over there
building,
to
and
like
it's
talk
very
shit at
sad.
you. I'm like, hey, Brandon. Oh wait, you're not
There in spirit, there in voice.
So, as we mentioned with each movie, we try to pair the tone, feel, and overall impact of the story with a cocktail. This season, we really wanted to discuss the cocktail and more, and how it links up with the movie selection. Everyone who listens knows by now that when we finally watch a Bond movie,
Which we are in the.
No,
we're
bullshit.
so close.
Bullshit.
So close.
Nope.
I
We'll
cannot
pair
wait
it with
for
a
the
vodka
world to
martini,
end, and we
shaken
never
stirred
get
with
to
a lemon peel. I really want to try this drink one time. But tonight's cocktail was chosen by Jeremiah, so he will be talking through us by the cocktail.
Tonight we have the Hello, Clarice. The
Terrible
drink
name.
was inspired by the iconic line that drove fear into the hearts of every watcher and consists of Cointreau, rye whiskey, lemon juice, bitters, and a nice Chianti float.
Right.
We
It's a
enjoy this.
of Chianti.
Oh, it's a float of Chianti.
He says it Chianti, which I love.
We will be enjoying this cocktail with a liver and a nice review.
Thank you very much.
You told me this was his regular state, Sean.
Let's drink up.
Here,
Hey,
cheers, gentlemen.
Hey, across the USA, drink up.
Clink.
Clink.
Okay.
Oh, I just want to choose someone's face off.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of rye whiskey.
This is
but,
not good. This is not a good cocktail. So we probably should warn you that it's not good.
Don't drink it.
We haven't had a good drink since it.
That's not true. We've had a couple of good drinks since it. This
No,
one is
your
just
drink
not good.
for The Shining was fantastic.
that's
Awesome.
true.
Awesome.
What am
That
I
was
drinking?
pretty good.
It's rye. It's too whiskey.
The whiskey is fine. It's something else.
It's got
It makes you want to
orange.
put
It's
the
just-
lotion
the
on again.
bitters.
It's trying to do
What's
too
this
much.
coin tiara?
It's first of all, it's Contro.
Well, there's
Sound out
there's an
correctly,
I in there.
Contro is how
Point.
it's spelled.
Point.
It's called
True.
Contra, bro.
It's French.
It's just not. It's not great. So,
Hey, did you know this movie was released on Valentine's Day?
no, I did not know.
That's such a
that.
cute thing. Like, hey, you want to watch something about cannibalism for your,
Talks
you
a lot
know?
about
Oh,
the
so you
90s crew.
you were shipping the two of them too, Clarice and Lecter.
Okay, I think when we start this review, we've got to start with Clarice because they just did a TV show that kind of failed about Clarice. Clarice had the sequel Hannibal. This idea of the character of Clarice, excuse me, being this be-all, end-all to serial killer hunter. To me, that's where the movie broke down a little bit because I thought that Jodie Foster was really good at her role, but at the end of the day, my problem with her was that she was kind of all over the place. She didn't have a significant, solidified character that she ran through the movie with.
Oh, she was a
Listen,
rookie.
you're wrong, and I'll tell you why you're wrong. Because I
rookie.
think what she did, yeah, she's a rookie, and she is so out of her league that I do think that Foster played that doe-eyed, have no idea who she is and what she should do moment so well. I think that one of the times that we actually see that the most is when they go to the funeral home and she just kind of kicks all the cops out of there. Like she wants to apologize right after she says it because she doesn't know what is the right thing for her to do or not. So I do think that it's intentional, even though I think you're right that it was all over the map.
I also think that she never really saw like a dead body. I mean, you see how she saw. She was, I don't know. Maybe she has, but it's like she hasn't seen many of them, and so she was almost infatuated with that at that same spot when she kicked the police officers out of that mortuary. She also saw a dead body, and she instantly went back to her father when he was at the mortuary.
I will say I'm also a little jaded by all the other movies that have come after this movie. So we've got Hannibal that was a direct sequel to this movie, Hannibal Rising, which was technically a prequel, and then what I think is the best entry into the Hannibal Lecter movies, which is Red Dragon. And that was kind of a prequel in that Will Graham is the person who found Hannibal Lecter and incarcerated him in the beginning.
So you're actually, well, again, we're just having a tough time. We're missing out on the most important one, which is
Manhunter. I've never seen
Manhunter,
that one.
which is
Brian Cox!
Brian freaking Cox.
I haven't seen that one.
A lot of people don't know, but Brian Cox was the original Hannibal Lecter in the Manhunter film, directed by Michael Mann back in '86. Actually,
Is it good? Is it a good movie?
It's pretty freaking hardcore.
Know that I love
Really?
Brian.
Well,
Manhunter?
everyone loves Brian Cox, Brandon. Don't
So
pretend
when
like you're
Manhunter
the
was
only one.
released,
That's
then
weird. Eddie just loves Cox.
Silence of the Lambs came out in the late '80s, and it became like a huge, one of those best booksellers. And actually, Gene Hackman actually acquired the rights, and he was going to actually star and direct it. They were going to get Michelle Pfeiffer to actually star in it, but she was asking for way too much money. And Jodie Foster was found out about this, and she wanted this. And I actually think Jodie Foster did really, really amazing.
Jodie Foster is adorable.
I think she was seriously influenced a whole generation of female detectives.
before
Like a
Red Dragon
strong
was
female
Manhunter.
character.
No. Well, I don't know about Manhunter because I've never seen it, but I know that Red Dragon was basically the events that led to Hannibal Lecter becoming incarcerated for Silence of the Lambs.
Is Anthony Hopkins in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So and
Red
Edward
Dragon.
Norton is Will Graham. So he is the one who caught Anthony Hopkins and incarcerated him to be interviewed by Jodie Foster in the events of Silence of the Lambs. And I know that we shouldn't be drawing on other movies from the universe, but at the same time, I think it's important because you have Philip Seymour Hoffman, you have Ray Fiennes, you have Edward Norton in this great movie called Red Dragon that basically preceded Silence of the Lambs, where I think Jodie Foster did not adequately engage with Hannibal Lecter in a way that like Edward Norton did. And that's where I got caught up in the movie, is that I didn't feel like Lecter was giving Jodie Foster or Clarice Starling the information based on the questions that she was asking, but rather the fact that she was a woman in this uncomfortable situation.
No, I think it was because she wasn't. It's not because she was a woman. I think it's because she had so much baggage that she allowed him to psychoanalyze somebody else finally after a long time, and he was able to get something he wanted, which was just that story about the lambs, because it was somebody who's hiding something, and he was able to bring that out of her. And I think he saw that right from the get-go, is that she is there. There's more to her than meets the eye, because everybody he's seen up until that point, Chilton probably more than anybody else, they're right out front with him. They straight up say, "Hey, this is who I am, and I hate you."
So I think we need to identify the character of Chilton and understand kind of where he's coming from. So Brandon, you touched on that. Why don't you kind of jump on that?
Yeah, so we got Chilton, and he's the head psychiatrist, I guess, of the place for the criminally insane. The prison,
the crazy prison,
the crazy person prison. But I mean, the thing that, well, luckily he is going to be eaten by a friend at the end of the movie, so that was pretty cool.
With some fava beans. And
we don't know if he's going to have. He might have pinto beans with this one, or garbanzo beans. Not really sure.
Hopefully chili beans.
But no, I think that Chilton was really. It's shut up, Ed. It's important to look at Chilton, because Chilton, I think, has been Lecter's only main, conversation piece, and Chilton has gone out of his way to show that he hates Lecter, that he's done nothing but been an asshole to Lecter. And then you have this really, then you've got this really timid person who is broken, and Hannibal Lecter's able to basically do what he likes the most, which is to
so that's my
get
question.
inside somebody's head.
So that's my question. Is Hannibal Lecter an amazing psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever you want to call him, the person who infiltrates the mind and forces people to do what he wants them to do?
No, because he doesn't. Go ahead, Jer.
No, he in general, he's a good guy. He's just a fucking psychopath, Yeah,
because he got Miggs to kill himself because Miggs was a jerk to Clarice.
Yeah, I mean that seemed
Which
fuck.
is
I don't
just
like
intense.
this word, but I'm going to use it. So when he asked about how her cunt smells, it's like that is a deeply cut insult, right? So it's like it gets to the heart of who Clarice is.
We're talking about the first meeting.
I'm talking about Biggs. Biggs, what was his
Miggs.
name?
Miggs.
Miggs. Sorry, Miggs was, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but it was the guy next to Lecter in the cell.
He is everything that Lecter isn't.
Right. He's more graphic, more disgusting. I feel like Hannibal Lecter is a more refined intellectual.
I actually
more intellectual serial killer than like Miggs is.
I actually think that Hannibal Lecter, for the first time, found someone that he was really interested in with Starling, and also just saw something different than most what he's ever seen before. Yeah. I mean, you guys kind of think he was kind of taking advantage. He was giving hints throughout the whole movie at how he can actually help you catch Buffalo Bill.
Well, his anagrams were phenomenal. His concepts were definitely cut to the heart of who Buffalo Bill was. So I agree with you there. But at the same time, I felt like he was toying with Clarice.
No, I think I honestly think he was trying to make her figure this stuff out, to actually educate.
He knew that she was smart enough
Yeah.
to do it, and he wanted to push her to become her best, which is weird. And because I love the ending when she is talking to her friend, right? And she's like, "Oh my God, Lecter's free," and Clarice is like, "He's not going to come after me. We're done."
Respect.
It's almost like
It's
it's
like
almost
a-
like
It's a
she
respect.
knew,
It is a
right?
respect.
Yeah.
Like,
And
And you see that with that phone call at the very end.
he goes after people who are arrogant and who think are way smarter than he is.
He says that the world is a better place with you in it. There's something about her that he sees a different light. And
And he means,
yeah, and you see, like, during the movie when he was talking about, his drawings and whatnot, and he's talking about, like, his sketch of the roof of the Belvedere or whatever that thing is. He literally told where Buffalo Bill is, because Buffalo Bill's hometown or home place was Belvedere, Ohio. He was explaining, he was like giving her hints for her to figure this stuff out.
See, and that's the thing about the movie that I really appreciated was that if you look at, like, I've seen this movie probably 10 times, right? I've loved this movie. I've loved this movie 10 times. But this viewing for the podcast, I actually delved deep into what the movie was. And I found that Clarice was given these hints by Lecter that were independent of what the actual verbiage was. So his anagrams, his subtext was more important than actually what he told her. And that to me was super interesting because I had not caught that the couple of first times, 3 times, 4 times that I've watched the movie. I saw it this time.
I love that the fact that the first meeting, it's almost like he was trying to do like this alpha, like, he had her sit down and he was standing up and everything. He was trying to show dominance, power and whatnot. And he kind of put to jab and almost tells her, like, I feel sorry for you. You know what I'm saying? I feel sorry for you because the way how you grew up and how you're trying to hide this, who you are and everything like that. And pretty much belittles her to the point where she actually goes back against him. And then you see him calling her back, like, hey, do you really want to actually have my help? Like, he brings her back in because I feel like she passed the first test between their first, interaction with each other.
So, I want to talk a little bit, too, about Demi, the director, and the way that he staged, pretty much all of Hannibal's lines, which is breaking the fourth wall and just looking directly at us. So much of the movie was actually looking directly at the camera, Lecter more than anybody. And, talk about unsettling. Now Sean, you mentioned something that I have in my notes, too, that I wanted to ask you guys is, do you see this as a horror movie? Because I don't. And I know the easy answer is, well, it's a suspense or it's a thriller. It wasn't scary at all to me, but it was creepy enough. And I think one of the things that made it creepy was Demi's choice to have these characters, especially Hannibal, look directly at us when he's talking.
So I would say that a couple of elements were scary or terrifying. And the first element that I would say is when she's going into that storage locker and she sees that vehicle and she climbs her way into the vehicle and she sees the head. Yeah, but that is horror movie magic, right? So you have like a reveal of something scary, it's a jump scare. So I would say from that element, it is horror. From the rest of the movie, it is more suspenseful. It is wondering, like, how she's going to catch Buffalo Bill, whether she's going to catch Buffalo Bill, and what role Hannibal Lecter is going to take in catching Buffalo Bill. And I think that creates a suspenseful or a suspense-related movie. So I would say it's more suspense than horror. So I would say it's more suspenseful than horror.
Eddie, go. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think this movie would be a hit if it came out today because... you look at like the Netflix shows like Making the Murderer of, the show that's in Wisconsin. I think it's Wisconsin. And it's just like, there's so many different shows of like these FBI catching the killers and, the murderers are like somebody like next door neighbor. So I was just like, I looked at this movie and was like, this is a really good thriller. And it was a really good, I didn't see it as a horror movie. I saw it as like
More of a thriller.
And also like a suspenseful
Like suspense. Like a more of a suspense
detective movie, like
psychological movie versus like It, where it's jump scares and horror.
Yeah, there's hardly any parts in this movie that made you jump. Besides, like one or two parts, or like the what's her name, who's captured in the well, and she saw like the nails in the wall. Like it wasn't really a jump scare.
But even that's not like a jump scare.
It's a reminder of a great horror movie that we did a couple of years ago, The Ring. Anybody else get that vibe?
Was that great?
Not at all.
I mean, that's the same year we did Halloween, though. So Halloween was better.
Shoot, we need to move on and talk about something
okay,
else.
so and the answer to your question, Brandon, I feel like this has the same vibe as The Shining, where it's this tense psychological feeling that's going to happen and everything like that. It showed that, humans can be monsters in this movie. Like, it's like you can see like the evil of the worlds and whatnot. And that is, to me, can be more of a horror that has more horror texture than just someone like, as a slasher movie and whatnot. Eddie's talking about like, this could have like this true like stories or true crimes. Well, Buffalo Bill is based off of Ed Gein. Ed Gein, who is basically the guy who's like famous, like, inspired, like, Psycho, Norma Bates, or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, he would do shit like this where people's, bodies and faces and things like that, man.
So I'm going to take it one step forward. I think that this movie was magnificent in its normalization of the serial killer motif, right? So you've got Hannibal Lecter, who basically was a cannibal. He ate people. Hannibal the cannibal. Yeah. He ate people, and it was sort of taken for granted how evil he was. And Buffalo Bill was part of his choreography, part of his ensemble. And as you kind of go through the movie, Hannibal is this character who is going to lead you to Buffalo Bill. So he's basically selling out his own kind, his own criteria of killers in order to reduce his sentence. And that's really what the story is about, is Hannibal Lecter giving up other people that are of his same ilk in order to achieve some sort of normalcy. And while he plays,
but do you think it's because he wants to be the best?
He fucking plays everyone good because he escapes at the end. His whole concept is that he's going to give information in order to achieve something.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I feel like I see what you're saying. Like, he's doing like this whole chess game, and he's like nine moves ahead.
Yeah,
but it's because he wants to be the best. He wants to be the only.
Listeners out there, just so you know, Brandon.
What was that, Brandon?
The cat known as Mrs. Hudson just knocked over your microphone. Just so you know.
What a bitch. Anyway, listen, here's what I'm saying. I get what you're saying, but also maybe it's because he wants to be the best. He wants to be the number one. He wants to get rid of any kind of competition, and Bill is competition.
You think
they hadn't been able to catch
Bill is actually in competition, or is he just doing whatever he can to become less incarcerated?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. The way I look at it was like Hannibal found a way out, and he was able to see, like, okay, with Clarice, it's almost like, okay, this is a cool way, like maybe I can get moved to another prison, but by doing this at the same time, he kind of found interest. Is like, okay, well, like, am I actually enjoying this? Like, he's studying. He's always 9 moves ahead, like everyone was saying. But at the same time, he's just like, okay, well, hold on one second. Like, I'm trying to find the interest in this story. Like, I didn't know who you were until, like, that's why he kept asking, like, hey, no, don't give me the faked way out anymore. Like, I want to know the real reason why you were like, what? Tell me your backstory. I really want to know you. And then he got to, and then he was just like, okay, here's what. I agree with you now. Like, I'm gonna give you more of a little bit of a lead with what I'm thinking.
But I agree with you in some respect.
He always was looking the way out.
I do agree with you in some respect, Eddie. But what I get down to is that Hannibal Lecter knew that he could use the basically false promise by Scott Glenn's character. What was his name? Crawford.
Jack Crawford.
Jack Crawford and Clarice as a reason to basically use that as leverage against the senator to get a better deal. So it's almost like he was manipulating the people behind the scenes in order to get what he wanted, irrespective of what was going on with Buffalo Bill. And that kind of dichotomy is what makes me question whether or not he wants to be like this master criminal, or whether he's just trying to get out of prison or make his prison sentence better.
No, I think he was trying to break out of prison. I think he knew that if he could get out of his cell anywhere, any way, he was going to be able to escape because he's smart enough. He outthinks people.
I agree with you. Yeah.
It was to not lessen his sentence. It was to legitimately escape, which he did. Which is actually one of two problems.
Brandon, are you saying that he used the offer or the circumstances of his incarceration as a cudgel to escape?
It got delivered to him. And I feel like he's like, hey, this is what I'm working with, and I can work with it.
So his purpose was always to escape. It was never to get a better sentence.
Yeah, exactly. He found Starling, and he knew exactly what he was going to be able to do after this situation.
So from the moment Starling came and sat in front of his cell, he thought actually that he could use her to escape.
Let's put it this way, Sean. When you first meet Hannibal Lecter as the character, you see him just almost awaiting for her to come. It was like almost like he knew this was going to happen.
That's where I have trouble, right? Because I feel like Clarice coming to him was unexpected. And so the question, Brandon,
he was waiting. He was waiting for her.
Okay, so you think he's waiting for her?
He's waiting his next move. He knew that this. It's like almost like he saw this, and he was like almost like welcoming this new opportunity in a way.
It kind of brings me back to my original question, which was, wait, Eddie, are you?
I'm good. Phone died.
Oh, your phone died?
Yeah.
So you can't hear Brandon anymore?
It's okay. I'm watching him.
Okay.
So if he's moving his mouth, I'll stop talking.
This brings me back to the question that I kind of have originally, which is if excuse me.
What? No.
If Hannibal Lecter saw that Clarice was his way out, what was his interest in actually answering the questions about Buffalo Bill? So if he was just looking for escape, why would he help Clarice solve the problem of Buffalo
because he
Bill
knew he could manipulate her. He knew he could manipulate her because she was new and she was fresh and she wanted to win. He knew that she wanted to promote herself. That's what he said. You want advancement. So when he sees her, right, and he sees her and he sees that she wants that advancement, he knows that she'll do anything. All he had to do was just mention, I want to see trees, right? And she was going to use that and go out and do that and get him out of that cell for some way.
So you're saying that Hannibal Lecter was using Clarice as a reason to negotiate, or like explain that more, because I got the impression that Hannibal Lecter was using Clarice as like a floating balloon of opportunity rather than anything else.
Oh yeah, well no, in a way, yeah. But what he sees in her, and he literally admits this to her, is he sees somebody who wants promotion, that she'll do anything that she can just to be recognized. And remember, he's the one who said, what do I want? I want to be able to see the trees. All that's saying is I need to get out of this cell so that I can escape.
So that brings me to the question, why Clarice? Why did
he was waiting
Jack
until
Crawford,
somebody like Clarice showed up, and it just happened to be Clarice.
Why did Jack Crawford pick Clarice? Why did Jack Crawford make that an option?
And the best thing is, for me at least, he picked her, and it worked for two different reasons than from why it worked and why he picked her. He picked her.
Hello?
Hold on. Let's pause right now because we have 10% on Jeremy's phone. Eddie's phone has died.
Do we have any charges here? All right, Brandon, answer that question about Jack Crawford.
So the question on the table is what Jack Crawford was doing when he brought Clarice Starling in as the investigator on the Buffalo Bill.
Right. So what I think is it actually worked out. So it worked out either way. Both of them got what they wanted, but it didn't work out the way that Crawford thought it would. Crawford thought he would entice Lecter with this young, beautiful woman, and that Lecter would just kind of get all weak in the knees and just kind of blurt it out because all he's seen is hard-scrabbled asshole men. But what Lecter sees is a couple things. He sees a broken woman, a person who he can get in the mind of. But more than anything, he sees it as his opportunity to escape because he sees that she is a rookie.
Okay, so
that she's gonna want to get out
stop
there.
You right there. So why was Crawford not
because,
Hannibal? Why was Crawford offering Clarice not?
Well,
what
I just told you, but you didn't listen because he thought he thought that
clear.
Clarice, he thought that Clarice would entice Lecter because she is everything opposite of everything that Lecter has been thrown, which is middle-aged men.
So she was different.
She was different, yeah. And Crawford ends up winning because of his decision, but he doesn't end up winning for the reason that he thought he would.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Brandon because, like, Crawford saw, like, maybe he was getting to a point with Hannibal. It was like, hey, we're not moving any forward with him, and we'd bring some fresh eyes in here just to stir up the pot.
Because there was that scene.
It got a little bit more than, I mean, he probably just like, hey, let's just see what you can do. Like, it doesn't hurt. You just throw a woman in there and see, and that's where the whole woman, like, she started getting bad looks from everyone. Like, oh my God, like, she's gonna be here, but she's way more qualified than almost everyone.
Well, you saw her, like, being hit on and just
but she played professional.
She was in. It was almost kind of like a man-dominant world that she was in and everything like that. She was by herself, I'm
going to pick up on what Jeremy's saying, but basically when she was at the, what do you call it?
The
mortuary scene.
Yeah.
Where Scott Glenn, a.k.a. Jack Crawford, was basically saying we need to talk about this privately in order to talk about the sexual nature of the crime. You got this sense that she was being excluded because she was a woman. Yeah. And then later in the car, Jack Crawford was like, I was just doing that because we were trying to get them out of it, the local police out of it. And she said, quite truly, that you are the responsible party. You are the one who's everyone's looking to. And so when you treat women like that, it is the way they're going to treat women. And I think that was a very interesting dichotomy between men and women in this industry, in the field, in the FBI. Like the way that women were treated, it almost was like Scott Glenn was not intentionally trying to keep women down, but at the same time his actions were doing that. Crawford. Even though Crawford was doing that even though he didn't want to do that. And
it worked in the past.
And Clarice kind of said she called him on it, and she was like, no, women, we can do the same thing, and it's up to you to set an example. And that he wasn't setting that example properly. Did anyone else get that concept, or is that
absolutely? Yeah,
I think that. Yeah, I think you got it right there.
I mean, you see in a lot of film, you see in a lot of scenes where it's just like she's surrounded by just nothing but men.
Looking at her, glaring at her,
like, I mean, the doctor. What's the doctor's? The psychiatrist Chilton. Like hits on her right off the bat. She goes into a museum and she gets hit on right off the bat. It's just like.
But this is the brilliance of Jonathan Demme. This is the brilliance of Jonathan Demme in this movie because he has these characters breaking that fourth wall, staring directly at the camera, so that in that minute or that second, we become Clarice. We feel everybody staring at us.
Perfect. So, if I could give you a high five right now.
Perfect right now. Yeah, I want you high five from across the crunch.
I will say this though, for the script or the story, you have Hannibal Lecter going from his very institutionalized cell with block walls and glass. I feel like he was moving from where he should have been, a institutionalized cell, to a more political atmosphere because the senator was involved, right? So
Well, no, yeah, but you have literally all the media attention. You had Chilton being interviewed, right? It has become sensationalized, and I think you're right. The fact that it was in the middle of a, I don't know, courtroom or something huge.
it was political. Like you
was
saw the
political,
bunting.
for
Like
sure.
it was
Yeah.
more.
City Hall.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah. I love the fact that Chilton actually did the one thing that he was not supposed to do, is to bring some type of like object into Hector's cell, and that was the pen.
Hannibal.
Let's
So.
talk though about how did he actually get the pen? Like that pisses me off.
No,
That's-
Hannibal got the pen from Chilton because
no, I know
there
he
was a
did,
scene
but-
where Chilton looked for a pen to sign a document and realized he didn't have his pen.
But
So-
when
He
Chilton
wants to know
left the-
how he did that.
Yeah, when he left the pen, he was all caged
He was
up.
caged up, and he kept looking at the
because Chilton
pen.
was so wrapped up in the emotion of trying to become
Good answer. Yeah, it's good.
the
guy.
the psychologist,
The guy.
psychiatrist who brought
Buffalo Bill
the Buffalo Bill in,
the Hannibal.
that he was so emotionally
ego
involved
got the
that
best of him.
he
Yeah.
arrogantly
Yeah.
presented a pen to Hannibal Lecter,
was
and
almost-
Hannibal Lecter took the pen.
He was really put out that the FBI went to Clarice than himself, because he was guarding Hannibal when he was also a doctor.
It was this trophy, yeah.
It was his trophy. But I still didn't understand how Hannibal got the pen, because Hannibal was,
Exactly, me too.
yeah,
Well,
Hannibal
we
was
don't
locked up.
see it.
I don't even think
but
Hannibal
we're
ever
no-
got the pen.
Yeah.
Hannibal
To me,
got
it's
the
I
pen.
that
think
was
it
just
was
a-
the
that was
scene
just a
where-
little bit of
where-
lazy. that
No,
was
it
lazy
is. I
filmmaking.
agree with you. But I think Chilton it was in the scene where Chilton was basically demanding the name of Buffalo Bill from Hannibal. I think it was that
Yeah.
relationship, that conversation that led to Hannibal getting the pen.
I don't think it's lazy filming. It actually focuses on the pen as you see Chilton leaving, and you know for a fact in your mind, like, he's going to get that fucking pen.
So-
you don't know how he's going to do it,
I-
but you know that this is the reason why they give these rules, that this guy is
But he didn't
able to
the
get
pen.
out.
He got like a piece of the pen, right? Like,
Exactly, yeah.
I don't want to say it was lazy filmmaking, but I do think that it would have been less subtextual. Is that the right word?
Subtextual, yeah.
Subtextual if it was made today. And this is my biggest issue with the movie, is that I think that a lot of things would have been more explained if it was a movie that was made today versus a movie that was made in 1981 or 91. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I think that it would have been more overt, because there was a couple of scenes, like even at the beginning, where you really didn't know what was going on. You didn't really know that Buffalo Bill was the one they were chasing, and it was confused.
Oh, I feel like it left breadcrumbs, you know. I don't know if you're supposed to watch it or know what's going on, but it literally shows, like, the very first minute when you see Starling, she's looking like behind all this information, and you see something like Buffalo Bill skins fifth, you know, that you know exactly what's going on here, that there is a serial killer out there that they're looking into.
But it's not.
But we
overt.
need to talk about Bill though. We need to talk about Ted Levine.
Oh.
Levine. Freaking amazing.
He
Let's
was
just
fabulous.
pour one out for
there
him,
is
yeah.
no better crazy person. So it's so funny because when Eddie got here this evening, I was watching a show called Monk where Ted Levine.
course you were.
plays- No, of course I was. But
Yeah.
Ted Levine plays like the chief of police. So he is like the authoritarian. How do you say it? Like the.
He's the straight guy.
The supervisor of Monk.
It's so crazy to see him something
It
like
was
that.
so funny because he's a straightforward, like, by the book character in this, in Monk, but not in Silence of the Lambs. He was like this flamboyant, beautiful serial killer. It was just such a cool way to see him differently.
It's so crazy
Yeah.
when you think about the Silence of the Lambs, like, you know, everyone thinks that, oh, it's Hannibal Lecter, but no, it's Buffalo Bill that's actually, you know, the scariest person in this movie, you know, what he's doing and everything like that.
See, and I keep dragging it back to Red Dragon, which is my favorite entry into the Hannibal Lecter chronology, or whatever you want to call it, is that you had Ray Fiennes as the villain, or the Buffalo Bill character, and he was so good. He was so phenomenal. You ever see Red Dragon?
I've seen Red Dragon. It just, for some reason, it doesn't hold too much of a. It doesn't really hold up as much as the first Silence. The Silence of the
See,
Lambs.
I
really
like
do.
I like
I
Red
will-
Dragon far superior to Silence of the
Well,
Lambs.
I will get back to you.
Right.
I will get back to you on my thoughts because I am now going to commit myself to watching all of these movies.
I agree. I've
Give
never
this
watched
one, guys.
Silence
So
of the
my
Lambs.
problem
I
with
watched
Silence
half
of the
Hannibal.
Lambs is that Clarice is boring. At the end of the day, Clarice is a boring character. She is not intriguing like Will Graham. And Anthony Hopkins is in both. Anthony Hopkins is fantastic in both. But you've got this cat and mouse, the same type of movie in Red Dragon that you do in Silence of the Lambs. And I think Edward Norton does a better job of humanizing the investigator than Jodie Foster did. And that's kind of my issue, is that Clarice Starling is kind of boring. She doesn't have this depth of character that I think that if the movie was made today, you would have the depth of Clarice Starling.
I have to disagree with you on that, Sean. I think you see a lot of depth in her character, this redemption that she's trying to find in herself. You know, this whole thing where, like, finally when Dr. Lecter, like, you know, finally gets to her, like, what drives you, what makes you you, and she gives you the whole story about the sons of the lambs and everything like that, you know, how she tried to rescue something, but what she rescued, the lamb, it didn't matter because it was just drawn to actually...
It died anyway.
It died anyway. Yeah. And that her whole situation was just trying to find this woman, almost kind of like, you know, it was like almost a redemption thing for her to actually find this girl at the end of the movie and everything like that. So, and you see her character, you know, being kind of like, you know, looked at differently, be able to actually outsmart the whole department and actually find.
But that's the problem I have with the movie, is that she didn't outsmart anyone. So one of the greatest scenes in the movie is when the bell is ringing, right? So Buffalo Bill is down in the bowels of his evil
cave
lair.
That's one of the best scenes, actually.
And the bell rings, right? And so you have Jack Crawford, you have Sam Elliott. He's going to find Buffalo Bill in the place that he thinks he is, and the bell rings. And when Buffalo Bill actually comes to the door, it's not Scott Glenn, it's Clarice. It's Jodie Foster.
Yeah, everyone thought
and
it
then
was gonna
Jodie
be...
Foster, as the scene progresses, figures out that Buffalo Bill is actually the murderer.
Great scene.
Right? So she sees the butterfly. She sees that he is kind of like...
The thread.
Right.
Yeah.
There's this, like, the realization that Buffalo Bill is who she's looking for.
See, but the thing is that she was able to actually understand what Hannibal Lecter was providing her information better than the rest of the FBI department.
But Scott Glenn said, look into his past. Like, we don't want to get him for kidnapping. We don't want to catch him for kidnapping the senator's daughter or whoever that was. But we want to get him for the murders. So she was going back to the original victim, saying, let's start from the beginning. Let's attack it from, Tibbet or Talbot, I can't remember the name, but there was a seamstress or like a dressmaker that.
Are we saying that was his mom was a seamstress?
That's what I got from it, was that his mom was the seamstress that made dresses for the original victim. That's what I kind of got.
But she was able to figure that out better.
No, she was great in figuring that out.
Yeah, but I'm saying, go ahead.
She walked into that house and realized that Buffalo Bill was indeed the person she was looking at.
So she was able to actually figure this one out better than the FBI.
No, I don't think it was better. I think it was almost like she was following up on secondary leads, and that
she was doing her job.
Happened upon the villain, as opposed to what Jack Crawford was doing, where he thought he was getting.
I feel like I have to disagree with you guys, but yeah, I mean, I see what you guys are saying. Yeah,
so I gotta ask.
She really thought. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah. So my question is, okay, so he's making this this suit of women, which, by the way, the fact that we just get that quick glimpse of it was perfect.
I will say this, that the concept of him sewing skins together to make a woman. Oh, we lost Brandon.
Nope, we're here.
Right. So you've got this wonderful, horrible concept of a serial killer making a suit out of women.
He wanted to be
right.
a female.
So women's skins. Like, I want to
one
marry
that
you
would
and
fit
make something
him
with both of our skins.
One that would
Hank
fit him
Azaria.
though. He wants one that fits
He wants
him.
one that fits him, right? So
Size 14.
yes. So he's getting bigger
Just know the
women
size.
to create this suit, and
Which
that,
is where my
Go ahead.
but that's where my question comes in. Why doesn't he just take more skin and kill 3 chubbies, and
I'm done with you.
and at that point you just go ahead and say, I'm going to stitch these guys together.
Less
and,
chubbies.
boom.
Okay? Less
no more
chubbies.
chubbies. That's what he's saying.
He
More
wants less,
chubbies.
but he wants less chubbies.
No, he's saying
just
more
saying.
chubbies. Brandon is suggesting that you
Less,
basically
yeah.
take more chubbies.
No,
You
no, I'm
take-
taking less.
well, less. That
No, that means that he has to
He's only taking little parts from each woman.
Brandon, I don't think you can take that much skin from a human being.
you guys are like
I'm just
so
gonna say-
overanalyzing this fucking part right here,
A
guys.
human being is covered in skin.
Shauna Brandon, let me just talk to one of you. Have you guys done this before? Since we
Yeah,
I mean, like, have you guys?
I'm kind of worried, Brandon. Like, since you've like,
Are
you
we
know,
still talking about tucking it in?
yeah.
Jesus.
I'm
No.
kind of worried about you, Brandon, because I feel like you're like across like the U.S. now and everything like that, and like we don't even know who you are anymore.
Listen, I'm just saying.
I mean,
I'm just
this
saying,
does
when I-
take place in like like in the East Coast, by the way, this story. So
So anyway, my point of this is you've got a character in Buffalo Bill that is creating a suit of women. And he's taking the skin off of his victims and making like a coat. Right? I mean, that's the whole concept of the movie.
Yeah.
And that Clarice stumbled upon him. She didn't she deductively got to where he lived.
Not
because
necessarily. She looked back at the profile, and he left a clue in the map, and that's where Hannibal's like, "Hey, does this map look any
like it's almost
too
so
unpredictable?
There's a show.
Which one on this map
right.
doesn't look right?
There's a show on. I want to say it was like CBS called Numbers. It was fantastic, and it was a show that suggested in its first episode that the randomness of where somebody was trying to put things is not necessarily random. So random is like things are close together or they're weird. And Hannibal Lecter basically suggested that it was almost like too random. It was too spread out to suggest that it was actually random.
Yeah. No, what I think what you're trying to say is that she is a capable FBI agent. There's nothing special about her.
you guys got to remember, dude, she's not even an FBI agent. She's a fucking student.
What I'm
you
saying
know?
is that she's not special though at all. She lucked into this.
No, I think she is special. She looked at the details better than all other FBI.
That's true,
Okay.
because if you
Perhaps.
watch in the escape scene, Hannibal Lecter leaves clues about who Buffalo Bill is and everything like
Right
that.
through his anagrams and all that. And
No, I'm talking about anagrams, but like how he pinned up the one of the police officers and made him look like a butterfly and whatnot. How he actually escaped by taking someone else's mask, face, skin. He left all this breadcrumbs for
So I will say
Starling to figure
that
this
was
one
the
out.
creepiest moment of the movie where he took someone's face off and put it on his own.
Did you guys
face.
expect that? Or did you guys?
Oh my
Brandon,
God, John Travolta.
Well, no, Brandon, you've never
Nick
seen this
Cage.
movie, right?
Did you see that? Did you expect that?
I listen. There were unfortunately parts that I have seen. I saw the filleted cop of fish in Jesus pose. That was badass. Have seen that one, and I did see the Face Off. So that one, yeah.
The whole movie was surprising to me because I didn't necessarily love it. Like, this was not my top 10 movies of all time. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I thought this movie was kind of fresh and new and different. And you had this serial killer who, in Hannibal Lecter, who was willing to do basically anything to escape. Because that whole escape from the whatever you want to call it, the political arena or whatever, where he was in that cage in the middle of the room, where he willed himself out essentially on a gurney, like to the hospital. That was
Faking a
ingenious.
seizure and everything. Yes.
Yeah, it was ingenious. And that was a cool way to escape the place. What I didn't necessarily care for was when he basically taunted Clarice and said, okay, I'm going to have a friend for dinner. And he's obviously talking about Dr. Chilton. And it felt unfinished to me. It felt like it was revving for a sequel.
Love it.
I think that was actually perfect because you know why? Because in the end, like kind of like Empire Strikes Back, that we were talking about, weeks and weeks ago. Like the bad guy won at the end of it.
That's the thing that bothered me is that the villain won.
There's the difference between us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but imagine that. Like you don't like seeing something like this in the '90s where you've never seen something like this before, and I think this movie seriously started a whole generation of movies like
the villain
this.
Could also be good, but also bad. Like the villain could play both sides. Like this villain was able to play both sides and be like, hey, I can help you solve this mystery, but at the same time, I'm going to also have the benefit for myself.
So Hannibal was a legit 2 decades. So when was this movie?
This movie was made in 1991, and then the
Hannibal
sequel
was 2001.
2001.
So is that 10 years?
10 years.
Okay. So literally a decade after Silence of the Lambs came Hannibal, and Hannibal was a travesty. So I'm looking at Hannibal right now, and David Mamet wrote the screenplay.
So I'm saying David Mamet is not as great as everybody wants to make him out to be.
And Red Dragon.
Shots fired.
The throwing shade. There it is.
I like it.
Red Dragon to me is such a much better movie. It's not even
Well, guess
funny.
what, Sean? We're looking at this movie. So I have one more question before we wrap it up. Okay.
He's gonna watch
did it
Red
bother-
Dragon, and he's gonna be like, it's okay.
I will, man. Yeah, seriously. I'll get
No,
back to you.
you need to watch Red Dragon because Red Dragon is amazing.
Shut up, Ed. So listen, I do have one question.
Why are you bringing Ed into
didn't
this?
say
He
shit.
didn't even say shit.
What the fuck, bro?
Listen, did it piss anybody else off? Because at the end, right? So you got Wild Bill. He's got Clarice. He's using his night goggles. Genius, perfect. And it's just like, why have him wait and want to touch her hair? And I mean, it was just begging to have him,
He was. I want to say what I felt like is he was just so like wanting to have what Clarice was having.
So, but
That's a good point. Yeah.
Hannibal said something
Yeah.
at the Hannibal Lecter said something at the beginning of the movie, like probably 20 minutes in, that said Buffalo Bill is not a real transvestite. He's not actually a transitioning man, but rather something else entirely.
He's more of a tormented man who hates himself.
So it's almost like that scene at the end when he's reaching for her hair, when it's not necessarily that he wanted to kill Clarice, that he wanted to almost become Clarice. So I think that worked well.
Guys, can you hear me?
I can't hear anything.
You can't hear?
can't hear
you can hear me, right?
From what?
My voice talking to you?
Yeah, I mean, I can.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
I mean, like from my ears to you. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh my god.
And that brings us to the end of our review. Now it's time in the podcast where each of the hosts provides his score on the following scale. Eddie, can you please provide the following scale?
All right. We're gonna start with 0, the perfect movie. You don't need shit to enjoy it. 1, a feel good first cocktail. 2, you're gonna happy buzz. 3, you're gonna Uber home. Is that 2 or 3?
It's 4.
These numbers are starting to be a little blurry. I'm just a little bit drunk. Okay, start over.
This is gonna be the worst edited episode.
0, the perfect movie. You don't need shit to enjoy it. 1, a feel good first cocktail. 2, a happy buzz. 3, you're gonna Uber home. 4, rough morning watch of shame. 5, blackout shit face spring break drunk. Gentlemen, let's start with
I'll go first.
Sean.
Okay, so I thought this movie was a very good movie. Don't get me wrong. I think that Anthony Hopkins was probably fantastic in his portrayal of Hannibal Lecter. I think Jodie Foster was lacking in the Clarice, in that she did not have the development that I was hoping for. And that's we talk about in this podcast all the time about character development and story development. I think the story was fantastic. I think the character of Clarice had not developed in the way that it should develop. I thought she was boring. I thought she was kind of slow. I thought she was kind of drawn out. And I thought Hannibal Lecter was probably one of the most dynamic characters ever to be seen on screen. I think Anthony Hopkins was just fabulous. So that alone brings my score up. But the movie in and of itself, I thought, was kind of disjointed, kind of didn't know what it wanted to be. And for that, I give it a 1.5. I give it a feel-good first cocktail with an extra shot. And so my score on this movie is a 1.5. I think it was a fantastic portrayal by Anthony Hopkins. I think it was a really good story that was hindered slightly by Clarice Starling's inept approach to policing. And that's just personal opinion. Brandon.
All right, so this movie is a movie that I came in having heard about, having wanted to see for years and years and years, and just never got around to it. I think for me, I'm not a huge fan of horror films, so not that I didn't want to watch this because it was a quote-unquote horror film, but I did go into it with this kind of expectation of what was going to happen. And I was let down on that expectation just because it wasn't, to me, a scary film. It was a thriller, I guess. It was suspenseful, I guess, for 2 scenes. But that being said, what I got instead was a really developed story. Sean, I know that you're saying that Clarice is not a developed character, but I disagree. I think that she is a character who is coming into her own, and we could experience that for 2 hours. I have always thought highly of Anthony Hopkins, but after seeing this movie, I literally changed my opinion completely and think that he's one of the very, 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 very best. He was creepy. He was fascinating. We just couldn't not watch him and not hold on to every single word he says. And I think that Jonathan Demme just outdid himself with this film. I'm happy with this movie. To me, is it a top 10 movie ever? No. Does it have problems? Yes, it does. But to me, this is a movie that really has stood up the test of time. And for me, it is a feel-good first cocktail with a shot and just a little spillover. So I'm going to go with a 1.75, and that is going to be my score for The Lambs.
Jeremiah, what do you think?
I believe that Silence of the Lambs broke through and helped redefine the 90s cinema. I think it elevated mainstream horror to a whole nother level. I think it showcased a culture impact for years to come regarding to what the vibe is and everything like that. I think it has legendary performances by all the actors. Sir Anthony Hopkins gave us, if not one of the best villains of all time. And I think Jodie Foster as Starling, I think she created one of the most loved female heroines and possibly one of the best all-time great movie heroines for what we have here. There's a reason why we have more, detective movies, that's based off of a female-driven characters and things like that. Someone said this best. The movie showed us that monsters could be humans and humans could be monsters. The movie will still haunt you for many years to come and will never let you go. And I think that says something right there. So I'm with both Brandon and Sean. I think, seriously, I'm going to have a first good cocktail with a added shot to it. So it's going to be a 1.5. So I'm going to have, a nice chianti with some fava beans with it.
I like that. Eddie, what do you think?
So I thought this movie was definitely hit. It's awesome. It was scary, but in a good scary. It didn't hold the I didn't understand why my mom didn't let me see this when I was younger, but maybe I understand her reasonings. This movie definitely is a classic. I also enjoyed watching this movie with Jodie Foster and seeing a young Jodie Foster and see how she was able to just hold the camera and in the very end of the scene, I want to say I probably watched that last 25 minutes probably about 30 different times. So I just wanted to see every different part of it. I really enjoyed how she was able to, you saw almost FBI agent become from a rookie to becoming the instantly realizing that she has the main killer in front of her face and that she's by herself and she had to handle business. It was really cool to see. I almost, for some reason, this was a high-end version of Blacklist with Hannibal Lecter trying to get out. And if you ever watched the show Blacklist, with that character trying to get out of being a hostage and just at the same time helping the FBI solve crimes. It just it was a better version of that show. I really enjoyed the movie. That I was trying to tell everyone that this is this will probably, if this movie was released today, it'd probably be a really big hit, bigger than it was then, even though it won the Oscar. I thought this movie was almost ahead of its time a little bit.
Yeah.
But overall, I give it I think I give it the same as Brandon, the 1.75.
So when we combine the scores and divide by 4, this gives Silence of the Lambs the average of what, Sean?
So 1.625.
1.625 puts us on even par with Big Fish. 1.625, Psycho, Galaxy Quest, and that's it. So 1.625 puts us tied with Psycho and Galaxy Quest in the 13 spot. Star Wars Rise of Skywalker is 1.375, better than. 1.5 is Big Fish and Pirates of the Caribbean. That's better than. And less than is The Sting and Deadpool at 1.75. So I think
it's kind of weird, Sean, that it's right next to Psycho.
Yeah, it's tied in the 13 spot. I mean, at the end of the day, it's tied in the 13 spot.
Yep.
I mean, it's like the same serial killer in a way is actually the same movies.
It's kind of creepy, right?
It's kind of creepy, dude.
So 13, It's 13th on our list of all time, and I think this is a proper spot for us. So Silence of the Lambs is one of those movies that I think that it transcends the generations. It really becomes a creepy entry into our list. 13th is a good place for it.
Unlucky number 13.
Unlucky number 13. Well, if you enjoyed our podcast or a fan...
I think we lost Brandon.
Oh, well...
Connectivity.
If you enjoyed our review or are a fan of the podcast, we ask that you please subscribe wherever you're listening and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. You can also find us on Instagram at thegentlemanpodcast.com, at thegentlemanpodcast.com. You can visit our website at thegentlemanpodcast.com. Or if you want, you can reach to us at hosts with an S, at thegentlemanpodcast.com. I really appreciate everyone listening, as do we all. And we will see you in 2 weeks, gentlemen. And Jeremiah, you're going to have a shit ton editing to do on this podcast.
Fantastic. I can't wait. I'm going to lock myself in the cabin.
I would like to wish you all adieu and have some liver with fava beans
and a nice chianti. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Best one yet?
No, it was horrible.
No, it might turn out pretty well, but fuck, we lost everyone. We lost our computers, we lost our fucking phones, we lost Brandon.
Where was it? It's
Eddie.
Calm down.
It's Eddie. Eddie's the problem.
I'm not the problem.
Problem?
It literally is always Eddie.
Bullshit. Two other phones have
Are we
died
good?
besides me. Okay?
Hold on.
And a laptop.
Are we good?
Give me 1 second, guys.